Good evening, my name is Kent Coleman. I'm an alcoholic. My dry date is May 18th, 1992. Venice Group, Sandusky, pray for our group. We're still struggling with location since COVID. I have a sponsor. He's actually sitting right down here. My best friend is sitting right here. My girlfriend is sitting here. There will be honesty tonight like you have never heard before. I don't want there to have to be a rebuttal after this talk. First off, my parents raised me right. My mother, I always would say, would stand up right now and go, "You ain't turned out right." But anyway, I want to thank the committee for the invitation. It's an honor and a privilege to participate in anything in Alcoholics Anonymous. The life I have today is because of people like you in rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, sponsorship, home group, and working intensely with other alcoholics. And that's the reason I have the wonderful life I have today. It's sometimes hard to put things into words because they are of spirit. They come from in here. And sometimes they defy my ability to express them vocally, but I will use the two words that I learned from my grandmother, and those are thank you. Thanks for having me. I want to thank Janelle for coming with me. Today is 5 years ago. Today is the first time she and I met in person. And so it is... She is the light in my eyes and the wind beneath my wings, and I am grateful for the life that we have. It is, and that's like a lot of like what I'm going to talk about today. Is step 1 and 2. Listen, step 1 is non-negotiable. Step 1 is non-negotiable, and step 1 for me is a call for action, but I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. I've always said that alcoholism, many refer to it as a disease of denial. I don't believe that. Now, it could be, but I think in most cases it's a disease of ignorance. Had you asked me the day before I came to you if I was alcoholic, my answer would have been no. And that answer would have been based not on what was going on with me, which I didn't understand. It would have been based on the fact that I didn't know what alcoholic was. When I got off from work in the morning and went down to the tavern and said, "Man, I've been thinking about a beer all night," nobody stood up and said, "That's the mental obsession that precedes the..." We didn't know. We learned we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. To fully concede is to accept and surrender internally. Concession is internal. Confession is external. Concession is internal. We learned we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. I did not know what alcoholic was when I came here. Had you asked me what an alcoholic was, I would have given you whatever definitions I either overheard as a youngster or picked up in the street. You know, guy living under a bridge, long trench coat, stocking cap, drinking wine out of brown paper sack, sleeping under a cardboard box. Yes, that certainly must be an alcoholic. Don't have a job, right? No, all of and that's what I love about the book Alcoholics Anonymous, particularly the chapter more about alcoholism, because it exposes so many of the myths that we have about alcoholism. They don't have families. They don't have jobs. Read that chapter. Read that chapter. But I came to you. I had no idea what an alcoholic was. I stayed in Alcoholics Anonymous for 3 months with no sponsor, no book, no steps, no home group, nothing but attending AA meetings. And I did that for 90 days. And I ain't just go to one meeting a day. I went to 3, 4, 5. You know, a lot of things in here we realize as we look back, right? And I used to stand behind podiums like this and say, I came in here and I ain't do nothing and I didn't get nothing, right? That's not true. That is not true. I used to give a guy rides to meeting. His name was Walter. Walter got sober in the early 50s, and he was a little abrasive. I'll just put it that way. Walter lived out at the veterans home. He had those old hearing aids that looked like earmuffs. Remember those? And he screamed everything, right? And a lot of people didn't like Walter. You know, I'm in AA. I ain't working the steps. I'm the bedevilments walking. That's what I am, right? I didn't see nothing wrong with Walter. I think he was all right with me, right? And I was giving Walter a ride home one night, and I said, Walter, man, I said, you know something? I said, I can't explain it, but no matter how the day goes, no matter what happens, no matter how crazy I am, no matter how bad I feel, no matter how scared I am, I always feel better after an AA meeting. And Walter turned and he looked at me and he said, don't you know why that is, dummy? And I said, no, Walter, why is that? He said, what's the first thing we do in an AA meeting? I said, we say the Serenity Prayer. He said, what's the last thing we do at an AA meeting? I said, we say the Lord's Prayer. And he said, and you've been sitting in the fellowship of the Spirit. And he said, that's why you always feel better after an AA meeting, Kent. And I have not forgotten that. So that's what I did for my first 90 days in here, is I sat in these meetings. And I didn't get better. I didn't get better. I got worse. I became more angry. Here's what really happened to me. I became more frightened. Because now I don't have that thing I used to lean on. I don't have that anymore. And the more frightened I became. See, I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a tough guy. I'm not a gangster guy. I'm a scared guy. I'm a scared guy. And the more frightened I become, the more desperate I become to try to control the things around me that scare me. And I'll do that any way that I think I need to do it. If I need to feel like I need to holler at you or control you or dominate you, if I feel like I need to kiss up or suck up to you, whatever it is, because I'm so scared. And so this went on, and it went on. 60 days not drinking and going to AA meetings every day. I picked up a steel bar at work, and I intended to smash a supervisor in the head with it. And had I done so, I'd have killed him. And I'll tell you, I intended to do it. That's what I looked like. 60 days. No booze, nothing else, right? Don't drink and go to these meetings. And you know, if you go to enough meetings, you'll hear somebody say that. And if you like me and you scared as I am, I latched on to that. Don't drink and come to these meetings. Don't drink and come to these meetings. If I put my arm through a window and I cut an artery in my arm and I start bleeding all over the floor, I drive myself to the hospital, I run in the emergency room bleeding to death. The doctor walks out and says, come on back, Mr. Coleman, we'll treat you now. I sit in the emergency room bleeding to death, look at the doctor and say, no, thank you, I'll just sit here. And I bleed to death in the emergency room. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the emergency room. I've been here for over 30 years now, and I've watched people die of untreated alcoholism who attend these meetings on a daily basis for years and years. Remind the prospect that his recovery is not dependent upon people, it is dependent upon his relationship with God. Okay. And there's a lot of things that go into that. 90 days, Oh, I didn't hit that guy. Actually, a guy came and saw what I was about to do and grabbed that piece of steel out of my hand. I sponsor him today. True story. He's actually sober longer than I am. And I sponsor him today. And all he said to me was, man, you need to get some help. All right? 90 days I'm sitting in the parking lot of a bar. Over 250 meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous in 3 months, and I'm sitting in a car, and I'm gripping the steering wheel, and I'm vibrating. Anybody know what that's like? I'm vibrating, dude. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I, some kind of freak? I go to these meetings every day. I never wanted to drink so bad in my life. I'm in the parking lot of Daly's Pub in downtown Sandusky. And it's St. Patrick's Day. Daly's Pub has a green back door. And I knew what was behind that green door. And what I did is I said my first prayer. 3 months, I ain't said a prayer. At my first AA meeting, I was raised in the church. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But at my first AA meeting, they got up and said the Lord's Prayer at the end of the meeting, and I didn't remember the words. I knew that prayer when I was 4 years old. And that's how far away I was from God and you. And I just said, God, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And I got an immediate answer. What are you doing right? If you go to that many AA meetings, and this is where it came from, if you go, you hear it every day. Get a sponsor. Get in a book. Apply the steps to your life. Get a home group. Get active and help others. Heard it every single day. Did none of it. And it was in that car that I fully conceded to my innermost self that I was alcoholic. So I get this sponsor and we get in this book. And there's something in there called the doctor's opinion, and it describes. See, I'm not going to stand up here and quote out the book. Listen, this thing is experiential. It's not intellectual. It's not theoretical. It's experiential. I want to share a little of my experience. But in this doctor's opinion, he talks about this allergy of the body. Now, prior to the book, the publication of the book, this had not been made public before. It's allergy of the body. When I put alcohol into my body screams for more. Right? He called it an allergy. An allergy, obviously, is an abnormal reaction. They said 1 out of every 10 people who drink will have this allergic reaction to alcohol. So did that happen to you, Kent? I started drinking when I was 14 years old. The first time I got drunk, I drank 5 quarts of Swiss malt liquor Bull. I was 14 years old. The upshoot to that, right, and how that story ended, because, it was one of them magical days, the effect produced by alcohol. The fear leaves, the mouth starts running, right? The sky got bluer, right? I got bigger, you got smaller. The effect produced by alcohol. And that's what happened to me that day. The offshoot of that day, I went home. According to eyewitnesses at the house, I threw up all over the house. I started in the living room, through the kitchen, through the family room. Right? My grandfather fell on the floor laughing. Went in the bathroom, hit everything but the toilet. Y'all know how it is. My mom, go ahead, clean up this mess. You've been drinking. It smells like a brewery out here. Stagger into the hallway in what later years I always say would be my drinking uniform, my underwear. I got one of them hangovers you can take out and look at, right? I'm dying. I go in the bathroom. I look through bloodshot eyes into the mirror. Stay with me if you knew. And this is what I said. Man, oh man. I cannot wait to do that again. Now you hear a lot of people who get in trouble their first time drinking and they like, oh, that's that. No. I had a meeting with myself in the bathroom. I love to have a meeting with myself. There's no opposition when you have a meeting with yourself. They don't usually turn out well, but hey, better luck next time, right? And this is what I came up with. Okay, Kent, you got drunk, you got sick, and you got grounded for life. That was my penalty for this, was grounded for life. Okay? So here's what you need to do. The reason you got grounded for life, Kent, is not because you got drunk. It's because you got sick. So what you got to do is learn how to drink without getting sick. This is Kent at 14 years old. Y'all follow this? When my job, when my family, when my freedom, and eventually when my life depended on me not drinking, no matter how bad I didn't want to, no matter how bad I knew I shouldn't. I have an obsession of the mind that will justify the taking of a drink even if it kills me or even if it kills you. And I don't know if you got what I got. And I was gone. And 18 years later, I met y'all. During that 18 years, a lot of things happened. And I'm not here to, who is it? I think it might be Ralph who said, this is the only place in the world where we try to out-bottom each other. Right? I'm going to tell you the truth about what happened to me. See, here's what I know. Is you can get off the elevator at any floor. That's why we changed the stories in the book after the first edition, didn't we? Okay? But I am a low-bottom, stumble-bum drunk. I was convicted of driving under the influence of alcohol 7 times in the state of Ohio. I've been cut out of cars. I've been convicted of a lot of very bad things. I'm not going to stand up here and talk about them. I died in 1984 as a direct result of the use of alcohol and some other things. I was resuscitated, and my older brother died when I was 13, and killed my mom and daddy, killed my grandparents. When you see your parents hurt like that, it's different than seeing somebody else. I don't ever want my mom and dad to feel like that again. 1984, I come to in the cardiac unit, and I see that same look on my mother and father's face. And I laid there, and my mother said to the doctor, I done already lost one son, I can't lose another one. And I laid there and I said to myself, God, if you let me live, I'll never drink again. I swear I'd never drink again. And I'm going to tell you something, I meant it as much as I mean it now. I spent 48 hours in the cardiac unit, and the cardiologist said it's a medical miracle. His heartbeat is fully restored, as strong as a horse. And they took me out of the cardiac unit and put me in a regular hospital room. I'm in the regular hospital room, 10 minutes out of the cardiac unit, and here's the thought that comes to me. Whew, that was close. But I'm all right now. This calls for a celebration. My best drinking buddy, Mark, walked into the room. Mark lost his battle with this disease when I was 7 years sober. It killed my boy. And it's not like indirectly. No. It killed him. He walked in my room and I said, go down to Cliff's Carryout and get me something to drink. And he said to me, you out of your mind if you think I'm going to do that. And I said to him, you're going to need me before I need you. Do what I just told you. And I'm in the bathroom drinking, and I'm 2 hours out of the cardiac unit. If I had the power to quit drinking on my own, I'd have never come to AA. Why should I? I'd have never come to AA. They cut me out of a car at the corner of Columbus Avenue and Taylor Street. This is my last DUI. With the jaws of life. About 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Been up all night. Was busy, you know. Driving a car ain't got no brakes on it. Now working for a motor company. I totaled the car, and then I didn't have no car. Then I had the distinction of working at Ford Motor Company and having no car. Yes, it can be done. You're looking at the man who did it. And, every week I said, I'm going to get these brakes fixed, man. Every week. I get a paycheck. And I say to myself, not this time, baby. Not this time. I'm going to cash this check. Get these brakes fixed, give my mom her money, and start doing right. Listen, I don't know about you, but I wasn't raised to live like an animal because that's how I lived. So I go down to Pat's Tavern to cash my check. Now, some of you will understand that I don't have no bank account, no credit union. With the credit union across the street, every Ford plant has a credit union across the street. Pat's Tavern down at the corner. So I'm down to Pat's. And Pat, he understood alcoholism. I know he did. Because when I walk into Pat's with his paycheck in my pocket, what he would do is set up an 8-ounce water glass, set a fifth of old granddad there, pop the top on the Millers and sit it there, and said, on the house, baby. Because he knows something I don't. That when I take that first one, something happens to me that ain't going to happen to 9 out of 10 people in that place. And I wake up on Saturday and I say, no more. Does anybody follow what I'm saying? At the end, I got a liver that's distended about 7 inches. I'm drinking a half a bottle of beer and falling asleep in the bar. They got to call my little brother to come get me. I go to work 2-3 days a week. If I can make it. Only reason I had a job is because of the union. Man, everything gone. I'm banned for life from my mother and father's home for breaking in there and stealing. Y'all know that. And I just quit caring anymore. One thing about this illness, We talk about from black and white to technicolor, how it just sucks the color out of everything. Everything just was gray. All I ever said was, I don't care. But the ego is resilient, isn't it? Because if you had to ask me that day, Kent, how you doing? Right? I talked about the bedevilments, right? Here's what my life looks like. Well, my body's given out. I'm 32 years old. I've been dead once. Every significant relationship in my life has been destroyed. I have nothing. I'm full of fear. I'm depressed. I honestly don't care if I live or die. I'm on a period of indefinite probation. Now, I heard of people getting put on probation for 1 year, 3 years. I stood in front of a judge who placed me on a period of indefinite probation. Now, you're talking about unmanageability. The state of Ohio has stepped in and said this has gotten so bad that we're going to help you. When they said indefinite probation, I leaned over to my lawyer. His name was Jeff. I said, Jeff, if you don't object to this, I will. He said, shut up. I'm trying to keep you out of the penitentiary. Like, this is the state of my life. There's a line in the book. Stay with me. The alcoholic life becomes the only normal one. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to sound absolutely crazy because that's what my life looked like. But if you would have asked me how I'm doing, this is what I would have told you. I'm all right. How are you? Anybody relate to that? Standing there, toe up. I'm all right. How are you? See, this thing, no human power. No human power. So I got this obsession of the mind. I got this allergy of the body. I used to think the allergy of the body was just that, I drink like a man, y'all weak. Throwing up in my car, right? I didn't know. I didn't know. I would have these moments of truth because this thing is progressive. Like I went off to college with goals and hopes and dreams and aspirations, just like Bill Wilson. I had a family that set me up for success. They set me up for success. And when I left to go to school, and I went to a really good school, I was already gone. 18 years old, I'm sitting up at 2 o'clock in the morning with my roommate, Dave. We had a disco ball in our room with the glass. And we had the music playing. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I looked across the room at Dave through the disco lights. And I said to him, man, my life's a mess. And I was not smiling when I said it. And he looked back at me through the disco lights and said, yeah, it is. And he said, so is mine. We was drinking night train wine. You going to school, you ain't got a lot of money. 18 years old. The people who lived beneath us said that we were up for 87 nights in a row past 2 o'clock. All I said to them was, I thought it was 88. If you don't like it, come join us. And they did, drank up half our wine. That is a true story. But anyway, I have this sponsor, and we're going through this book. And we started the doctor's opinion. We go through Bill's story, the progression of it. And I see that this thing, because see, step one is an internal concession. And the book, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I know it's a hand to God book because the people who wrote it were incapable of doing it. The book can raise the bottom for you. It will give me, if I can identify with it at a personal level. So when I'm taking a new guy through the book, I got 2 brand new guys right now. We page by paging. And I'm getting them to tell me, okay, yeah, it happened to me. I want to know, how did that happen to you? Talk to me about it. I call it sinking the hook. Until this thing get real in my experience, it's just very interesting information. Very interesting information. How did that happen to me? When did it happen? Tell me about it. And that's what started to happen to me. I started to see that this thing takes, that it doesn't give. I saw the progression of everything in Bill's life. I saw his relationship with his wife. I saw his career. I saw his friendships. I saw his health. I saw the effect of alcoholism on those around him. Big book scared me half to death. I used to think, man, whoever wrote this has been following me around. I have a moment of clarity sitting outside the Pump Lounge. There's a guy, he just died, I think, last year, Six-Pack Charlie in Cleveland. He was 63 years sober when he died. And this cat was dynamite behind a podium at Alcoholics Anonymous. He was as good as I ever heard. And Six-Pack used to say, that's the moment when God paralyzes the liar in you long enough for you to see the truth. And I sat in the car and I saw the truth. And the truth was simply this: if you don't stop drinking, you're going to die. And you better get some help because you can't do it by yourself. And you better do it now because you're running out of time. I believe that is the result of a lot of people's prayers. I did not come here on my own volition. I did not have anybody in my life telling me you need to go to AA. As much trouble as I have been in, which was alcohol related, which was all of it. No judge ever gave me a paper and said, you need to go to AA meetings, get this paper signed. And I know that other people was getting that, and I know that the reason that it didn't happen was God knew that if I wasn't ready, that I wouldn't come back. I really do believe that. I got to see this when my first sponsor used to say, AA works best when you run out of ideas. I was not too enthralled with what I saw, a lot of stuff in AA, but I would grant you this. I did not have another tap to turn. A lot of my, in the early days with me was, what have I got to lose? If it doesn't work, I'm dead anyway. What have I got to lose? I wish I could say, oh, gosh, I want what you have. I didn't let y'all get close enough to me to see what you have, to tell you the truth. Not when I first came here. I heard your stories. I identified with that. But I kept y'all here. So how it happened for me was the concession in the car that I got to do what they're saying at these meetings or I'm going to drink. And if I drink, I'm going to die. There was no question in my mind. And what it became for me was live or die. That's what it became for me sitting in that car. Live or die, dude. And it's up to you. Ain't nobody going to come and knock a drink out of your hand if you go into Daly's Pub. Live or die. What do you want to do? And I turned that key and I went to a meeting and I got some help. When I say step one is a call to action, that was the action that followed. I decide I'm alcoholic. I decide I want to live. Okay. And these are the things that I'm going to need to be able to do this. So I started to move my feet. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Okay. Came to believe. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe that there's a power greater than myself? I was raised in the church. I wasn't sent to church. I was taken to church. My mother was the president of Ohio Baptist Women's Convention. I could recite scripture when I was 5 years old. You know, it's a funny thing. My mother was also the head of the youth fellowship at our church. And one of the things that she did was she drilled us with these Bible verses just to drive me nuts. And we have to memorize them, and she'd make us repeat them out loud, right? Every morning I drive to work. It takes me 12 minutes to drive to work. I do not turn the radio on when I drive to work. When I drive to work, I recite those and repeat those verses over and over again. I do it every day. I do it every day. Moses Yoder used to say, "My mind is my garden, my thoughts are my seeds. What will I harvest, flowers or weeds?" What you putting in here? What you putting in here? So we get to the chapter, we agnostics. I'm thinking, we agnostics? Not me. I told my sponsor we could skip that chapter. He said to me, why would we skip that chapter? I said, because I'm not agnostic, I'm Baptist. His response to me was, I beg to differ. He said, what you really are, Ken, is a functional agnostic. Now, I didn't know what that meant, but I didn't like the sound of it. So I said to him, what is that? And he said, that's a person who professes to believe in God, but who lives like there ain't one. And that was me. There's a line in our book that said the spiritual life is not a theory, you have to live it. Knowing about this power and having a relationship with this power are two completely, totally different things. A relationship with this power for me is not about knowledge and intellect. Right? It's about the application of principles. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. What is sanity? Soundness and wholeness of mind. Obviously, I have described to you the insidious insanity of alcoholism in a few examples in my life. It was so insane. When I got cut out of the car, the next day I was recounting the story down at the Bucket of Blood, which is Nell's Cafe. And one of the guys said, "Oh my God, thank God you were drinking." I said, why? He says, because you were limber. He said, if you'd been sober, you'd have stiffened up, you'd have broke your neck. I said, oh my God, it saved me again. Give me another drink. Anybody relate to that? That's a true story. Booze is always the victor. No matter what the condition of my life, even at the end. When I'm drinking a half a bottle of beer and falling asleep, they got to call my little brother to come get me. Bill used to say all the time, I never walked into a bar room and said, hey, bartender, give me a shot and a beer. I want to be in jail by 9 o'clock. It's always going to be different. Tonight's the night. Tonight's the night I'm 14 again. No human power. As we went through the chapter, he explained something to me, and there's something I do with the guys I sponsor. The purpose of the chapter, We Agnostics, is not to convince me that there's a God. The purpose of the chapter, We Agnostics, is to open my mind to the possibility. To open my mind to the possibility. To get me to examine the fallacies of my thinking. My willingness to grasp any new concept that comes down the pipe. And we live in a highly technological age now, right? I'm still waiting on that hologram keyboard with the iPhone, right? I'm waiting on that because they said they were going to do it, right? And I don't question it. But when my mother says, God sure has been good to you, how many times has God shown himself? This was something I did with my sponsees during COVID. We had we have a Zoom meeting and guys around the country. And we started to look at, in our 11th step, we started to look at all of the times that God has shown himself in our lives prior to AA, getting to AA, and since we've been here. And the sharing that took place in that meeting, I got sponsees in this room. It was beyond words. Yet, I have to be vigilant on a daily basis. Because I'll tell you, the enemy, what does it say in our book? The problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. I got to watch what I put in my head. Because it is so easy for me. Right? I told my sponsor a few weeks ago, I was like at work. And it's a crazy thing, like I'm aware of how this insane, judgmental, opinionated thinking gets me into trouble and usually comes out my mouth. But I can't stop it. This thing up here, like I go to work, I be prayed up, you know, I'm ready. I've been meditating even in the car on the way. I'm getting right. Man, I get in there and I sit down at my desk and somebody walk by and I'm thinking, I bet you ain't done nothing this morning. It just starts this thing. Obviously, right? I need help. Obviously, right? So I come to believe, which infers this is a process. But how does the process take place? There was a lady in treatment, when I was in treatment, who used to come to the meetings at the treatment center. And she would always say to me and my roommate, fellas, if you take one step toward God, God take two toward you. And I thought, well, that's a real nice platitude from some church lady, right? The depth and weight of that, it's taken me 30 years for that to start to sink in. See, the way that this thing works, and the way I was sponsored, and the way I'm still sponsored today, is take the action. Take the action. Do it. Say the prayer. Don't matter what you think. Go help the guy. Don't matter what you think. Do it. Has never failed me yet. Never failed me yet. So Bob told me I had to start saying the prayer of St. Francis in the morning. And I've been doing that ever since he told me that. And it has gotten better. But this power can restore me to sanity. Right? Soundness and wholeness of mind. Okay, so the obsession to drink, I don't have. I haven't had it since probably when Finley and Kenny Von Balicki started me in the steps. It left. But here's what I do know. It can come back. It can come back. Step one is the root. Everything else, as Bill said at 12, we do to the best of our ability. We don't do it perfect. But one is the root. And from that root will spring the actions that I take imperfectly on a daily basis to try to grow closer to God and be more useful and closer to you. And I think that's the best way that I can say it. So I came to believe in large part, and I began to get hope from you, from the power of your example. I sat in meetings and I heard people say stuff Stephen King couldn't make up. Right? But they were standing up there dressed nice, smile, right? Eyes all lit up. There was a guy in my home group, Rick H. He's passed on now. And Rick used to tell this story about laying in his backyard. This guy was an engineer at General Motors. Laying in his backyard shooting his gun at the moon. Because he told his wife and family he was going to the backyard to kill himself. And he would shoot his gun at the moon, and he'd look at the house and wait on them to come to the window to see if, and he said, nobody came. Right? Dude, I listened to that. I'm like, yes, that's me. Right? Mr. Self-Pity himself. Right? Me. The power of your example. One of the great benefits of coming to these meetings. And there's a million. I mean, they're legion, obviously. But I came to believe in large part that this power that helped you could help me. And that started in step one because I got what you got. And now I'm starting to see what you got, and I want what you got. And if this power could help you, it could help me. Now, since later in the book, obviously, when it says, for by this time sanity will have returned, right? So that means there's a whole bunch of work got to be done in between here and there, right? But it's like everything else in here is progressive. So it's 6:30. I've been talking for an hour, so I'm going to wrap this thing up. When we get to the ABCs, A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. Okay? Talked about that. Talked about what alcoholism is. Talked about what an unmanageable life looks like. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. If I had the power to stop this on my own, I'd have never come here. Couldn't do it for mama, couldn't do it for daddy, couldn't do it for the job, couldn't even do it to stay alive, man. No human power could have relieved our alcoholism. But God could and would if he were sought. So what I got to do now is I got to start seeking. And we're going to move to step 3. And my friend Charlie going to help us with that. Before I leave, I got to give you one instance of, this is a show that, this happened this evening since I got here, that I ain't wrapped too tight. We are staying on the second floor. I am lazy. So I'm trying to figure a way to get in and outside to get stuff without going all the way down to the lobby and go out. There got to be a route, right? Well, right across from me is a door that says stairs. Oh, yeah, stairs. Wonder where they go. So I go down these stairs, and I end up standing in front of a door, and it says fire door. It says this door is to remain closed at all times. And here's the thought that occurred to me. Really? This door has to be closed at all times? What if it's not? What if it's not? Right then, the restoration to sanity occurred. I heard a voice. Usually it's my voice, which really makes it hard to get by, but it wasn't my voice this time. Was it God's voice? No, but I believe it came from God. It was Janelle's voice. And what it said was this: I cannot believe you did that. You got us kicked out of the hotel when you came here to speak. I've never been more embarrassed in my life. My sanity returned, and I thanked God. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Could be him, or I gotta make him. Huh? Could be Phil? Phil, come on up.